And by the way, the program I just outlined for you allows you to go to every neighborhood in America and talk to every person who works. It allows you to go into every small business in America and talk to every person who works. It allows you to go and talk to every person who has a pension plan who wishes there was no capital gains tax so their pension would go up in value if it's invested. It allows you to go to every person who saves and invests in America. It allows you to go out and have a program where you can literally reach out and offer a better future through better policies, with more jobs, higher incomes, greater opportunities, so that every young American who made a mistake last year can learn there's a better future. I sometimes think we should just capture last year's slogan, and our slogan ought to be, yes, we really can, but not his way. But I want to close with one story. And I want you... Look. I just want to warn you, because this is a great educational moment. Never tell a half-Irish former college professor to speak longer. I mean, the temptation is so great to say. And for my third hour, I would like to share with you. But I do want to share one last story, and it's an important story. A year and a half ago, my two co-authors, Bill Fortune and Steve Hanser, with whom I've written a series of novels, we looked at what was happening in the country. We looked at the mood of the conservative movement. We looked at the challenge of their economy. We looked at the likelihood we would end up with a very left-wing president. And we wanted to find a moment in American history to remind all of us what freedom requires. And so on October 20th, we have a new novel coming out called To Try Men's Souls. And I just want to briefly share this. Christmas Day, 1776. The American Army has been defeated consistently from September in Brooklyn, across New York, and across New Jersey. It has shrunk through enlistments expiring and desertion from 30,000 to 2,500 effectives, one-third of whom don't have boots. They're literally wearing burlap bags wrapped around their feet. Washington is faced with the reality that if he doesn't win a victory somewhere, the army is going to disappear. They have a council of war. And Washington, who is a very courageous man, who had in 1755 been an advisor to Braddock and had warned Braddock that marching down the middle of the road in red coats was not a very effective technique in America, and that the French and the Indians were going to shoot from behind trees and were going to wear camouflage outfits. And Braddock had explained to Washington that as a colonial he did not understand European professional fighting. When the ambush occurred in 1755, Braddock was killed almost instantly. Most of the officers were killed. One officer was left, riding a horse, the tallest man around. George Washington that day had 2 horses shot out from under him and had 4 bullet holes in his coat. But he rallied the British forces and got them out of there, minimizing their losses. 10 years later, he ran into an Indian chief at a powwow, and the chief said to him, "God must want you to do something because we were all shooting at you." He said, you were on a horse, you were the biggest person there, we all knew you were important. I personally fired at you 11 times. Washington, after the event, had written his brother that he felt that God had intervened and for some reason God had saved him. A feeling, by the way, that both Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II felt after they had assassination attempts. So here's Washington. His generals are all worried. Washington has come up with this plan. We're going to have 3 units cross the river in the ice at night during a snowstorm to converge at Trenton, surprise the Germans that were there, the professional Germans called Hessians, and we're going to capture them, win a big victory, and things will get better. And all of his generals are timid. And they're all going, this is a really big risk. And Washington finally says, look, if we don't win a victory, this army will have disappeared in 2 more weeks. When it disappears, we will have lost. When we will have lost, they're going to hang us. So nobody in this room has anything at risk. The 2 elements that are not with Washington don't get across the river. Washington's units get across the river. They then march 9 miles during the night in a snowstorm so severe. This is one of those moments when God intervenes. The snowstorm is so bad that while they are tempted not to continue because they have to go through 2 ravines they didn't realize were there, where they have to take cannon down an icy hill, across a frozen stream, back up an icy hill, and then a mile later do the same thing again. But the very same snowstorm has convinced the Hessians nobody could possibly be out, and so they pulled all of their guards in, and they're all sitting around fires because the weather is so terrible nobody would possibly be out there. That morning they capture 800 German professional soldiers for the loss of 1 American. The news of the victory galvanizes the country. 15,000 volunteers show up within 2 weeks, and the revolution has been saved. The password that night was victory or death. The men were read the opening section of Thomas Paine's new pamphlet, The Crisis. These are the times that try men's souls. As they got onto the boats, the officers literally were reading the pamphlet out loud to remind the men that in a free country you have to know why you're fighting. I close that story to tell you this. When you go home and you start looking for candidates and people say, oh, they might say bad things about me. When you go out and try to raise money for a candidate, you find people say, oh, I can't really afford very much. When you say to people, I need you to work for 2 weekends to win this election, I want you to look them in the eye and say, if men could leave a trail of blood for 9 miles walking in burlap so we can be free, tell me again your excuse not to be an American. Thank you, good luck, and God bless you.